Welcome back, venturers. It's time for another discussion about VNs. I am Amar, and together with Tauros, we venture into the monthly segment of what we've been reading in the past month. So, Tauros, what have you been reading on this planet since the last time?
On this planet, you say? Well, I finally took a crack at a title I've been meaning to get to for quite a while now, Planetarian. Planetarian is a short title, well, relatively short, about 4 hours or so, and yet it is packed with so much more emotion than I was expecting. It's not to say that short visual novels can't have a lot of emotion into it, but I was just surprised by how much I cared for the characters, their plight, the struggles they went through in a relatively short amount of time. I was very surprised when the Steam, playtime count gave me a fairly low number of hours, and I was like, wow, this was a visual novel that managed to capture me pretty quickly. But I think its opening lines describe it very well. Why don't you come to the planetarium? The beautiful twinkling of eternity that will never fade, no matter when. All the stars in the sky are waiting for you. This is the opening spiel that one robot assistant girl says at the front door of a tiny little planetarium. She is a dedicated assistant to the store, but unfortunately, what she does not know is that for the past 30 years, the world has gone to hell. There has been nonstop outbreaks of war, disease, destruction that has certainly set humanity on the path to extinction. The main character is what he calls himself as a junker, who is basically a scavenger. He's very experienced, and he's taking a lot of measures to survive this cruel world and all the man-made horrors involved, when he stumbles across this empty, abandoned, derelict city, and yet there's this one tiny pocket of this department store planetarium that's still managing to survive. And this is where that robot girl is, and the two characters form a very strange bond, and as the events of Planetarium play out, things get better and things get worse, and it's up to the reader to find out how that goes.
I did not anticipate two reports in a row that I will be hit with nostalgia. And Planetarium is a title I remember fondly. It's one of those early VNs I read that I think this is the first time I really struggled to describe what I liked about it with one of my friends. So it's very hard to quantify, encapsulate, and describe in the words, especially without spoiling what made it so good. Why I like that title.
One element I thought about earlier was that Planetarian reminded me of several other visual novels. It kept taking the strengths that I had experienced in other titles, maybe not as well, but still, it really hit the right notes, you could say. There's, one obvious comparison of Lucy, the eternity they wished for. And in that sense, Planetarium really has that childlike innocence of Lucy visual novel that really made it shine so much. This reminded me of Eden. There were only two on the planet. That personal connection between Ro and Shion, and how they both found each other in a post-apocalyptic world. It reminded me of Ame no Marginal, in the sense that there was an eternal reign going on, but more than that, the mood, all of that despair and the struggle, and the quiet acceptance of the end coming. And lastly, it also reminded me of To the Moon, that the final heartfelt messages involved in To the Moon and how much they reflected on the people's lives. all while I was reading Planetarian, I was starting to get like senses of deja vu, not because of the events evolved or because the plot was lifting elements from other titles, but the sense that like this was treading the same emotional tracks that I recalled in the past. And I thought about it for a while, and I was thinking like, is this like specifically reminding me of some other VN I've read? But the more I, thought about the journey that Planetarian took the reader on, and some of the other titles in the past, I was thinking, wait, this is snipping off, the best parts of various other titles I've read. But Planetarian did it first, so I guess you can say everything copied it.
It's again, like I said, it's very hard to describe, and I like how you made a comparison with various VMs, and to them on to a certain extent, I don't know if it's a VN or not, but VN adjacent at the very least title. To me, probably what hooked me on Planetarian was that idea of post-apocalyptic setting, or a world that went through very bad times, let's say, and a survivor of such planet just discovers some sort of out of world experience, right? Okay, this is a place forgotten by time and somehow preserved. And it reminded me, maybe a comparison I had at that time, especially from Fallout. Fallout is a series that has those abandoned technologies that assume nothing really changed and the world still works as it is. And Planetarian had the same vibe, and that immediately captured me. Okay, so you have two different perspectives on the world. I'm in.
It's hitting the right world building notes. I see what you're saying.
Exactly.
One thing, I guess you could say what hit me with Planetarian was how simple and effective all its foundations were. The writing is perhaps the best part of Planetarian because, as a short title, it's easier for the authors to create like arc words or phrases or scenes or symbolism that carries through the entire title. You'll see, lines and events referenced near the beginning that come into play later. And you'll see certain symbolisms that tie into the story as events change, and you can track the characters' progress in their own internal senses. I mentioned that intro at the beginning about why don't you come to the planetarium? And that's a frequent speech involved as, the android girl Hoshino tries to attract customers. And it has different meanings as you come across through the story. And that's something that I honestly miss out of a lot of titles I read. A lot of times you'll see visual novels that have great moment-to-moment plot and pacing and development. But what really, scratches my itch is when you get the overarching themes. Is when you're keenly aware when you're in the beginning, the middle, the end of a story, and how the writer is using these tools to tie it all together into one complete package. I really like that in Planetarian. I think it's written very well. I really like also how simple and effective its music is. It doesn't have many tracks, but they're so, I guess you could say, calming or effective, or to where they can simply play in the background as long as needed, and you never get tired of it. It never grates on you. And again, I think that ties into the mood of Planetarian so well.
One thing you reminded me of when describing Planetarium is our talk with Vimy, when we talked about his titles that were short as well. And he said, no matter how forced, it's important to have a character development. And it's a symbol of a well-paced and well-written title to convey changes in those characters in such a short time, right?
That's very important. When you have events in a story, a basic question that helps so much with characterization is, what effect does this have on characters? That's why, to go on a bit of a detour, that's why I love character relationships so much. Not just romantic relationships, but between, like, parental relationships or best friends or co-workers or, extended family. Because when you have relationships, then when something happens to one character, whether it's good or bad, you can feel those ripples throughout the plot, through the characters, even through the story. And then it has reactions to other people. Like, the classic action stuff of, oh, the villain just beat up, your best friend, and now the main character is enraged and he's gonna go fight the evil villain. That's a very simplistic example, but it's the sense of the plot like actually moving. One event leads to the next. And yeah, exactly. The same goes with character development. Things should happen, and it should leave a mark on the characters. It doesn't have to be anything, grandiose or, super affecting their personality, but it needs to leave some sort of imprint,
Yes, and to get to your point about relationships between people, right? Or characters. In this case, because we have Tauro's favorite robot girls, the best ones and maybe the most effective ones are the ones the relationships that are formed between characters of completely different perspectives and viewpoints. And in this case, we have someone who struggles to survive, is from that moment to moment, let's see another day lifestyle, and another person is oblivious robot who just wants to see more customers because surely the world is all right.
One thing I really enjoyed about Planetarian is that even though it's a tiny cast, the majority of this story is entirely just the main character and this Hoshino robot, we still get character relationships with others. The influence of other characters, the relationships, the meanings to the people who matter to each of these two characters in Planetarian, they still leave their influence felt. And that's something that I usually don't see in visual novels with small casts, so I was very impressed that Planetarian was doing it well. Even from some unexpected sources.
At this point, I have to admit, I don't remember that well because it's one of those first titles I've read. And if I understand correctly, currently Planetarian has the HD edition, right?
Yes. If I remember it correctly too, it got an HD re-release and it was put on Steam, but it only had the Japanese translation. And I think there was an English fan TL for like the original version, but obviously that isn't the best. So now, yeah, somewhat recently, like within the past year or two, it got the English translation with the HD re-release on Steam. So now you have just a great total package of Planetarian for Western audiences. Woohoo!
Man, you're making me go on a nostalgia trip. So now I have no excuse to try it in proper translation.
Oh, it's good. It's good. I very much enjoyed it.
It's been a while when I read it. And yeah, that being one of the first VNs, maybe I mean, shoddy translation didn't help matters. But yeah, I remember it was still nice.
On another, just a side note, I do love it when those 3 laws of robotics ever get mentioned in a story about robots.
Yeah.
I love it because there's so much the author can play with them. Is that, as intended, there's supposed to be hard guidelines that a robot can never ignore because the humanity, comes first and the robot is just a scrap of metal and it can be replaceable. But then you have other stories, other visual novels that act like, well, what if they're simply suggestions? Or, what if the robot wants to follow those 3 laws? Or what if, in a moment of great crisis, the robot ignores those 3 laws for the drama? Oh.
Wait, didn't Lucy also have those 3 laws of robotics?
It showcased them in between, like, on every loading screen. And as for the
Okay.
story, well, the better less said about that. I don't want to spoil anyone.
Yeah.
You should find
Yes.
out. Go read Lucy, available now
Find
on
out.
Steam. But
Oh,
yeah,
that,
I always love all the drama and all the character growth that can arise out of having those 3 laws of robotics and how the author decides to tie that into their robot actions.
wait, is that towards your final word? It's like, yeah, play more Robot Girls, the end.
More robot girls, yeah. Gotta love robot girls.
Oh, God.
Well, what have you been up to, MR? That's been my report for the month, and I'm very happy to share good news with everyone. So I hope I'm not, passing it off to you just to disappoint everyone.
No, I mean, to continue my nostalgic streak, even in this video, I've been continuing to read Mareeck Symphony. So, first thing first, a recap. What is Mareeck Symphony, okay? It's a title about a high school boy dealing with a completely normal high school boy thing. Until one day, his entire school closed down. And in its place, on the next semester, he needs to attend a previously all-girls school, now converted into co-ed. Okay, so throughout that merger process, he, as well as the other boys, need to prove themselves before the girl population of the schools, or to the school to be accepted. And so hijinks ensue. So that's the short summary. The last time I spoke about this title, on the previous report, I talked about following in the footsteps of anime adaptation, because this title had an anime. That's the first time I've encountered this series and this creator palette. And I really like that anime. So I really hope one day I'll definitely read the VN. And it just so happened that they released the VN, so I have no excuse. So, since last time I finished that route, or that character that won in VN, and just to clarify, this title features multiple routes with multiple heroines you can pick, and they chose one person for the anime adaptation. Fine. And I felt the way they realized the best moments of Mareeck Symphony from the anime in the end were spectacular, but it always left I need more. How to say? Taste in my mouth after watching the anime. So I decided, you know what? In the HD edition, what they did, it's not only translated the VN proper, but they also created a spin-off of sorts, if I can say it like that, or maybe Fundis is a better word. So they elevated one of the side characters to become a heroine herself, and that's the title I've been reading since last month. So in addition to finishing that one route, I've started the Mareeck Symphony Sana edition.
Okay, like a fan disc, or right?
Yes. Again, it's very weird to say because nothing is that. I need to quantify what is a fan disc. Fan disc, is it expansion over the original? In this case, not necessarily, but kinda is. It's hard to quantify. It's not a sequel. No, it's not a prequel, right? Most likely it falls into either a spin-off or a fan disc, because it changes the fact that one of the side characters is the main character. That's all it does. And bases the entire story progression on that one character. And it becomes, by proxy, a kinetic novel, or at least I haven't encountered any choices whatsoever. yet. It's very interesting to read a title dedicated to a character that, by all accounts, lost the previous route. Because the previous route basically boiled down between two characters, one of which was side character that had a feelings for protagonist, but that being she being tsundere, she couldn't express those, and you know the typical hijinks that could ensue from that. And now I'm reading the title in which she finally got to shine in the spotlight, and I felt like, damn, that's well deserved, especially given what happened in the route that got adapted into an anime. And it gives, I don't want to say redemption, because that's maybe a wrong word, but it gives a lot more context to this character. Which is surprising even to me, because I felt her falling in love but not being recognized was actually really well done arc in the original.
She went from that was a heavy influence in the original one, where she wasn't recognized.
I mean, the fact that she, until the end, never made protagonist aware that she was in love with him. But I felt that was very well done in that title.
And didn't even get a route. And now, so here she is in her triumphant return with an entire title dedicated. Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah. So I felt like, wait, the fact that you did not steal a drama and then you lost, let's say, gracefully, you deserve your own title.
Now, here's the question, though. Is this good?
Is what I'm reading good? Hiya.
Nice. Hello. Congrats.
Now, think about this. First, what surprised me is that they feature a skip of a common route feature, because that's what I was concerned about. Am I really going to read the entire common route again on a different program, because this is a different application that may not recognize which parts I've read previously? So no, thankfully, they allowed me to skip all the common route and just go straight into route split. Okay? That's one positive. The second positive is the moment it happens, right? So you split from the common route to someone's dedicated route for that character. One fear I had is the syndrome of everybody disappears from the face of the planet would start, right?
Classic, yeah.
The classic, right? Thankfully, that is not the case. Everybody from the gang is still meaningful, and they still exist in the story. Again, the story revolves around their club activities. In this case, it is a club about caring for animals that got hurt. They nurture them to health and then release them to the wild. That's the club intention. And everybody bonds around that club and their shared duty to help animals. Now, the crucial point was a central focus of that original route from the original game hasn't happened yet. So I wonder whether or not it will, or will the story take off in completely different direction all the time. And in the previous Readport, I disclosed that it was a moment in which the club for caring for hurt animals got abandoned kittens. So someone abandoned kittens with, just leaving a box at their doorstep. And they took care of it, even though that's kind of breaching the school policy, because that's not the intention. You don't nurture those cats to release in the wild. Those are someone's pet. Someone decided to abandon that. That's the central drama. That hasn't happened yet, so I'm very curious where this story goes. Especially since they introduced a new character that I've never seen in the original VM. So I don't know if he's even there. The younger brother of that heroine. And it's so funny to see their dynamic that you have a tsundere and a mini brother that also kind of acts like tsundere to her. And it's so fun, so funny, so hilarious to see even how they react and have the same emotions and reactions to things. And like that's actually cute. That's actually well put together. They are definitely brother and sister, okay?
Aw. The tsundere who's usually on the attack against the main character is now getting attacked by her younger brother.
Exactly, and that's hilarious.
Aw.
And her best defense is, I wouldn't be tsundere if not for my brother. And I'm like dying. I'm dying. That is so good, so good.
You mentioned a little bit earlier about an event, not happening, or events happening that didn't occur yet in the main story. And in my opinion, I always like that best about, multiple routes or character routes or fan discs, because I'm always interested to see where the developers will take the story. If they're allowed to just make one little tweak or one little adjustment to how things play out, like, are we going to see the results of that butterfly effect into the route we're gonna get? It's something about that just really captivates me. Just seeing that what if that comes off that one tiny little decision and, to a lesser degree, your own choices that lead you down this route.
Exactly, I completely agree. And both approaches have merit, meaning if a route and the story direction makes it so that event didn't happen and didn't transpire, okay, that's a take on the multi-route system. On the flip side, having a route in which the event still transpired, but because you're on a different route, you will behave differently and it will culminate or maybe take in a different direction completely, even though the same thing happened. That's also interesting because you get multiple perspectives for the same event to happen.
Especially when you have
Yes.
something like a fan disc, because it gives you a lot more freedom.
True. I completely agree with the fan discs. You have a bit more freedom with that.
Do you now? Here's the most important question.
Oh God! No! Stop with those most important questions.
Is Sana best girl?
She's really good. Okay, I give it. I'll be honest. Okay, I've had two routes. I haven't finished Sana's route. Okay, I had Miyu and now Sana. Sana is way better than Miyu. I'll just already say it. Okay.
Okay.
It's settled.
Okay.
I don't know if she's the best girl. I mean, we have Made in the Running, so that's a high contender. And the second, probably my funniest aspect of both previous route and this route is whenever there's a counseling session. Okay, so periodically, when protagonist perspective isn't shown, there's counseling session in which two tsunderes discuss the protagonist, and I'm dying laughing every time. I mean, it's never spoken like, oh, hello, welcome to the council, but I see it like a tsundere alliance talking and scheming behind his back. And I just like, oh, those are probably the most fun dialogue when they roast each other for being tsunderes and not... And their actions not correlating to how they speak about him. Oh God, I just love those. Those interactions are so precious.
Oh dear, yes, two very scary women plotting behind the scenes, huh?
Yeah, and it's so hilarious every time. It gets me. It's kind of unfortunate that both of them have very similar names. So we have Sama and Senna. And sometimes I'm like, okay, wait, why did you have to make it more difficult to follow? Who says what?
Oh, God, yeah. That's always such a pain in the butt for me when characters have very similar names.
Exactly, and it just so happens it's from the Sundari Council, okay?
Yeah. What's funny about that is that if this were a different medium, like say this was a TV series or a movie where you would hear these names all the time, then it wouldn't be a big deal. Because obviously you can hear the difference between Senna and Sana. But
Yeah.
when you have something like a visual novel, where you're always going to see that name in the text box as, that little spoken character name, whatever, or when the characters are, saying each other's name and you read it in text, Senna and Sana are so much more similar.
Yeah, but it doesn't help the fact that Senna is the surname and Sana is the first name. But just because of the interaction and how characters address each other, Senna is mostly addressed by surname and Sana by first name. So they are mixed
Hmm.
together. And then there comes a moment in which someone uses someone's surname instead of the name, and then like, wait, who are you talking about again?
The Japanese names. Oh, that
Exactly.
strikes again.
Yes. Exactly. Does not help.
Oh, and then you get stuff like, some characters refer to others with nicknames or their own unique way. And it's like, oh, I
True.
gotta remember a third name on top for everyone.
Although, to be frank, those are easier to follow, to be frank. Those are more unique.
Okay. And to be fair, in this title, in Mashiroiro Symphony, it's just those two that cause the problems, right?
Yeah, true. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's bearable.
Yeah, exactly. And it's again, I would say it's a small nitpick. As long as you are on your guard, you shouldn't get confused, okay?
But everything else about it is enjoyable?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
It's one of those, how can I say, slow burners, because it's how can I say it the best? It's close enough to slice of life that I don't binge super hard, but it's still compelling enough that I like reading, especially this title. It just I tend to not read slice of life very long at a time with reading sessions, right? So that's why it takes me quite a bit more time than was compared to Venus Blot or something like that. That has more of a cycle between action, drama, a problem, solution, next arc, rotation. This one is more subdued, more down to earth, and more slice of life-ish. I mean, in addition to being quite a lengthy VN.
No,
but
yeah, of course.
hopefully by the next Readport, I'm at the very least at route number 3. I'm going back to the original, which I haven't finished, if not further.
All right, I'll be looking forward to it.
So maybe I can even give you more detailed answer in that most important question you keep asking, okay?
Who is best girl? We need an essay. We need pros and cons. We need who speaks to your heart. Oh man, come
sure.
on, Amar, let's
You
go.
also need a chart that relates my opinion of a character given time and or route. So you can plot everything, how it changed over time.
You're gonna chart their various aspects as time went on during their route, their moe-ness and their charm and their deepening relationship bonds. We need to analyze this stuff.
Have you read VNs? If I'm obligated to increase their affinity, I can now plot their affinity to me, okay?
Yes, you can. All right, we'll be looking forward to it, Amar.
Exactly, okay.
All right, but on that
note...
Oh, okay, fine, you go for it.
I was first. On that note, thank you all for listening to my nostalgic Readport and Tauros sharing his planetarian views. And tell us in the comments what is your nostalgic VN that you remember. On that note, venture out.
Venture out.